So I'd like to introduce now the topic and our presenter, Dr. Robert Say. The topic is, why are gay-straight alliances in Alberta schools political hot potatoes? A motion to mandate that Alberta schools support the creation of student-led gay-straight alliances, GSAs, in schools where students have requested it was defeated in the Alberta legislature last year. In late 2014, two bills dealing with the same student-led gay-straight alliances were brought before the legislature. The first, Bill 202, was a private member's bill, which prompted the government to draft its own, Bill 10. By the time the dust settled and amendments were attempted, neither bill was passed as Premier Prentice stepped in and put the bills on hold pending further studies. Researchers at the University of British Columbia recently released the results of an extensive study showing that GSAs reduce the risk of suicide for all students, LGBTQ and straight. The speaker will present further background information on this topic and discuss what is known about the effects GSAs can have for all students in the schools where they are established. A bit about Dr. Say. He's an assistant professor of counseling and psychology with the Faculty of Education at the University of Lethbridge. He is also a registered professional psychologist and has a research focus on lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender issues in psychology, particular processes of individual identity development and understanding and overcoming the effects of homophobic violence and verbal abuse. And with that, let's welcome Dr. Say.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you very much for your kind welcome. As has been said, my name is Robert Say. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Lethbridge in the Faculty of Education. And I'm very happy to have been invited by the Southern Alberta Council on Public Affairs to join you here today to discuss what I think are some really important and interesting issues related to the current debate over gay-straight alliances in Alberta schools. So, as has been said, I'm a registered psychologist, so I'm a lecturer at the U of L, and I also am a practicing therapist. And my research interests are related to primarily lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender issues in psychology and identity development. In relation to that, I did kind of want to emphasize that my purpose here really is not so much to advocate for any particular political position with respect to the GSA debate, but really to try to bring forward what I think are some of the best, most current pieces of research from psychology and the related social sciences, to kind of put that before you to inform the debate so that you can arrive at your own conclusions about going forward politically. So, I do have an overview of what I would like to cover today. We do have a fairly limited amount of time. So I've divided my presentation into four main sections. First off, a bit of definition. What exactly are these GSAs? What do the groups do? How are they typically organized? So some background on that. I will talk just a little bit about the legislative context of GSAs, so what has been happening in the provincial legislature over the past few months and the debates that have been going on there. I do want to touch on what is known about the specific challenges and vulnerabilities that lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender young people face socially in general, and also specifically in their school context. And then finally, going forward from that, talk about what we know about what effects do GSAs appear to have for the students who participate in them directly, and also for all students who happen to be enrolled at schools where GSAs have been active. In terms of questions, as we go along, if there are any kind of short, specific questions, if anyone would like a clarification about something that I have in one of the slides, I think that would be fine, but if... No, okay. We'll hold it?
Yes.
Okay, please. I stand corrected. Please do hold the questions then. We do have half an hour set aside for questions, discussion, everything you would like to talk about, so maybe we'll do that then. Okay. So then to begin, what are these GSAs and what do they do? There is no sort of mandated guidelines for GSAs, how they should be formed, how they should run. Typically, I should say there is no typical structure. GSAs are as diverse as the students who make them up. And very generally, we can say that one useful definition for GSAs is that these are student-run, teacher-supported school-based groups that work to create safe, caring, and inclusive spaces for lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans-identified, transsexual, two-spirited, and queer students and their allies in schools. This, by the way, is the definition I will be using for LGBTQ. You'll see that this acronym comes up again and again as I go through the slides. It's a real mouthful, so I will use LGBTQ quite a bit. But I would like to use it in this very inclusive sense of basically all sexual and gender minorities. So the GSA student clubs, it should be emphasized, do have LGBTQ and heterosexual student members. There's also typically one or two teachers who serve as faculty advisors, resource people for the clubs. The heterosexual youth who typically wish to support, or who join GSAs, typically wish to support their LGBTQ friends or family members. In some cases, they may have LGBTQ parents, or they may simply be individuals who feel a real strong commitment to the promotion of human rights and to making their schools more inclusive places for all students. In terms of the use of the name GSA, there is, you'll see as I go forward, this comes up a little bit in the legislation, and there's also been a little bit of debate about, thank you, what exact name is used for the group. So GSA, Gay Straight Alliance, is the most common term used for these organizations, but they do sometimes go by other names, so you will see things like rainbow clubs, human rights clubs, social justice clubs. In cases where these alternate names are used, typically it's done because of a desire on the part of the students to emphasize inclusiveness. So this happens often because in the LGBTQ community, the word gay is often most associated with gay males. So using a different name emphasizes that it's actually all sex and gender minorities who are being welcomed. Though they are uncommon, there are instances of GSAs being formed in religious and faith-based schools. Sometimes in those cases you might see them referred to as pastoral care ministries or by similar names, but generally they do still serve similar functions to the GSAs that will be described throughout the rest of my presentation. Sorry, I have this up here, but I'm going to take a step back. I did want to talk a little bit about sort of situating GSAs within a broader educational policy context. You'll see organizations like the Alberta Teachers Association and other professional educators associations identifying GSAs as one component in constructing what they refer to in various ways as safe, caring, resilient school communities for LGBTQ students, and also as an aspect of strengthening what they refer to as educational capacity. So generally, those policy documents, you see three main components which are referred to again and again. When trying to promote resilience for LGBTQ students, what is looked for is inclusive school policies. Teacher professional development is an important component, so training and awareness building for the teachers themselves. And then the third component, our main focus, is active and visible presence of GSAs or similar support groups in schools. So how then do GSAs specifically serve these policy goals? Well, we know that they contribute to the availability of positive role models, Family and community acceptance. This has been identified as the most important of the factors for developing resiliency. They contribute to positive family and school relationships. This has been identified in the research. We'll come back to this point. The development of Lgbtq support networks, so support networks among the students themselves. And they also provide access to a variety of coping strategies which can increase student self-esteem and sense of belonging. Okay. So generally GSAs serve as a safe place for students to meet, to socialize, to support one another. Students can discuss their experiences and feelings related to sexual orientation and gender identity issues. Kind of connecting back to the diversity of GSAs, the diversity of the individuals who make them up. Some specific functions that you may see from one GSA to another might include the establishment of a safe space at school for social support, for connection, for recreation, providing access to counseling or other support services, raising visibility of the LGBTQ community and also awareness, also fostering dialogue, initiating school and community-wide educational and outreach activities. And finally, building tolerance and understanding, and just general respect for individual differences. A bit of historical background. We know that Canada's first GSA was established at Pine Tree Secondary School in Coquitlam, British Columbia in 1998. And this is right near, actually, the time, I forget the exact date, but the first American one was just a year or two before this. So Canada was quite close to the US in the development of GSAs. Alberta was not too far behind. Our first GSA was organized in the year 2000 at Lindsay Thurber Comprehensive School in Red Deer. We know that there are currently over 4,000 GSAs in schools in the United States. Recent statistics indicate that there are 45 GSAs currently operating in public schools in Calgary and Edmonton. I've also been informed personally that our Lethbridge public schools are actually quite progressive. Apparently, there are at least 3 GSAs in our public high schools, and there's even one which has just recently opened up in one of our middle schools. So Lethbridge is keeping up nicely in this respect. At the national level, Egal Canada has recently completed a nationwide survey of high school students. When they asked the students about whether or not they had a GSA at their school, by region, we found that British Columbia has the most. About 40% of the schools in BC do have, high schools in BC do have GSAs. Ontario, close behind at 37.1%. The Prairies, a lower figure, 13.8. Atlantic Canada, 4.6. And the North, 4.4, more modest rate.
What about Quebec?
I wasn't in there. Their survey, I don't believe it covered Quebec for some reason. There was a jurisdictional problem. Okay, so turning toward a very brief history of recent legislation in Alberta related to GSAs. As it says on November 20th, 2014, Alberta Liberal MLA Laurie Blakeman introduced Bill 202 in the provincial legislature, the Safe and Inclusive Schools Statutes Amendment Act. Among other changes, Bill 202 would have required school boards to develop policies to support students who wanted to lead and establish gay-straight alliance activities or organizations. Students could not be prevented from naming their groups gay-straight alliances or from using any other name consistent with the group's purpose. Again, this was apparently an issue in some instances that students weren't able to use the names that they wanted to use, so Ms. Blakeman's legislation specifically addressed that. Shortly thereafter, on November 24th, 2014, Premier Prentice announced that his government would be introducing Bill 10, an act to amend the Alberta Bill of Rights to protect our children. The introduction of this bill actually had the effect of superseding and replacing Ms. Blakeman's bill. Now, while Bill 10 purported to deal with many of the same issues as Bill 202, there were some significant differences in Bill 10. It did not give students a positive right to form GSAs or similar clubs. Instead, the legislation laid out that students had to ask a school staff member for their support in establishing such a group. The staff member, according to that legislation, would be entitled to refuse to support the student's initiative, and if that happened, a student would be permitted to appeal that refusal to their local school board. If the school board also rejected the student's application, the legislation made a provision that the student could then go to the courts for judicial review of that decision. Okay. Very shortly after the introduction of Bill 10, it was amended in the legislature. So as Bill 10 currently stands, the student's initiative, if the school board rejects a student's initiative to establish a GSA or similar organization, that decision is described as final. However, a student who has their initiative refused by the school board can send a request to the Minister of Education, who under the legislation would be obliged to facilitate and support the establishment of the organization. So a little bit contradictory. It's been argued that this means that GSAs in such cases could be forced off of school grounds if the school boards objected to them. Third reading of the amended Bill 10 has been postponed by the government for further consideration, so it's currently on hold. Okay, so turning back to the social science bearing on GSAs and having discussed generally what the groups are, having looked at the recent legislation, I think it's really important to discuss the situation of LGBTQ students and what we know about the particular challenges that they face, both socially and in their schools in particular. So there is a tremendous amount of evidence which indicates that the bullying of LGBTQ youth is common and extremely widespread. This bullying of LGBTQ youth can include a multitude of individual and collective acts. This can, such as, just as examples, homophobic name-calling, shunning, stalking. It's also been found that sexual minorities are among the most frequent victims of hate-motivated violence in Canada. School climate surveys in Canada, the US, and the UK all indicate that the vast majority of LGBTQ students are exposed to homophobic comments, things like "that's so gay" or homophobic name-calling frequently or often. Those are the terms used in the surveys, so typically that would mean on a daily basis. Just as a kind of a scholar of identity development, I think it's important to kind of underscore the power of expressions like "that's so gay," taking sort of a core aspect of a student's identity, and one that they often really struggle with through the process of identity development, and using that as a way to express contempt or using the word gay as a synonym for bad or stupid really undoubtedly creates a really powerfully negative atmosphere for LGBTQ students in their schools. The national survey by EGAL found that 70.4% of Canadian LGBTQ students reported having heard homophobic expressions used at school daily. And in that research, there were many anecdotal accounts of students who indicated that they could hear expressions like "that's so gay" or homophobic name-calling as many as a dozen times or more in a one-hour class. A further 47.5% of these youth indicate that they heard remarks such as "faggot," "lesbo," "dyke" every day in school and very often directed at them personally. Large numbers of non-LGBTQ students have also experienced verbal harassment about their perceived sexuality and gender expression. And here we see that these kind of homophobic, hateful name-calling terms are really used quite indiscriminately to ridicule and put down others. They have the same powerful negative effects when they are directed at heterosexual, non-transgendered students as when they are directed against LGBTQ youth. Turning to more severe forms of harassment and abuse of LGBTQ students, the Gsa study found that 20.8% of these students indicated having been physically harassed or assaulted due to their sexual orientation or perceived sexual orientation. That's compared to 7.9% of non-LGBTQ students. Some other forms of harassment, often directed toward students perceived to be LGBTQ, could include homophobic graffiti on lockers or personal possessions, rumor spreading, use of networking websites such as Facebook, and also text messaging to either spread rumors or to directly name call or verbally harass someone, textually harass someone. So, what do we know then about how the impacts that these hostile environments and direct acts of harassment can have on LGBTQ youth? Well, these forms of victimization have been quite clearly linked to a significant number of increased emotional and physical risk factors, which may include negative self-esteem, drug and alcohol abuse, experiences of clinical depression and anxiety, acts of self-harm, disruptive behavior in the school context, increased, often unsafe sexual activity, and decreased academic performance. We know that LGBTQ youth account for a disproportionately high percentage of homeless young people in North America. The range has been found to be between 11 and 40%. A recent study in Toronto found, I believe it was pegged at about 21%, so a startlingly high percentage, particularly this is a risk for youth who also have a hostile or unaccepting home environment, of course. Very worryingly, LGBTQ youth have been found to have rates of suicidal ideation and attempt that can be 4 to 5 times higher than their heterosexual non-transgender peers. Obviously a very significant risk factor. So turning from the identification of risk factors that do affect LGBTQ youth, what do we know about what GSAs can do to help reduce these risks in schools? Recent research suggests that acts of homophobic discrimination are significantly less common at schools where GSAs have been established, and the appreciation of difference is actively promoted. Where a school has established a GSA, LGBTQ students have described feelings of being safer at school, feeling less likely to be harassed for being different, feeling more likely to believe that they have supportive adults in their lives, and being more trusting that teachers will treat them fairly and with respect. Academically, LGBTQ student involvement with the GSA has been associated with improved school attendance, heightened academic achievement, a sense of personal empowerment at school, and heightened sense of hope for one's academic future. Personally and socially, GSA participants have been reported to credit the groups with helping them to achieve better relationships with school administrators, with teachers, family members, and peers. LGBTQ students in schools with GSAs are much more likely to report feeling safe and confident enough to be open with some or all of their peers about their sexual orientation or gender identity. And this is one of the crucial developmental challenges faced by LGBTQ people as part of their lifelong process of coming out and developing a positive sense of self. These students are also somewhat more likely to see their school climate as becoming less homophobic over time when a GSA has been established at their school, so 75% versus 65%. Finally, one very interesting recent study which was mentioned during our introduction, a study by researchers at UBC has found that anti-homophobia interventions such as GSAs can have powerful protective effects for all students against suicidal thoughts and suicide attempts. In schools with the Gay-Straight Alliance implemented for 3 years or more, what their study found was that the odds of experiencing homophobic discrimination or of having suicidal thoughts were reduced by more than half among LGBTQ students compared to schools where there was no GSA established. There were also significantly lower odds of sexual orientation-related discrimination for heterosexual youth, as was mentioned. And in fact, heterosexual boys were half as likely to attempt suicide in these schools as in schools without GSAs. So again, GSAs appear to serve quite a strong protective function for all students from homophobic harassment and abuse in the school community. Okay, so that concludes my presentation information. Now, time for discussion.